Eric Kripke's Supernatural ran for 15 years from 2005 to 2020. The show garnered a cult following, with the dark fantasy drama spanning for an incredible 327 episodes. And now, Eric Kripke has revealed one of the inspirations behind the show, which fans of 90s comics will be delighted about. Today, we're discussing Kripke's comments amidst reports that Supernatural was actually inspired by Neil Gaiman's The Sandman. Stay with us. So what do we know? Let's see. As Rolling Stone released an interview with Neil Gaiman last month, attention quickly turned to arguably his most revered works, The Sandman. He revealed how he succeeded in stopping an adaptation of the popular comic by John Peters, but was tight-lipped on reports that he had himself, and The Sandman, had been a huge inspiration for cult classic TV show Supernatural. It recently came to light that Eric Kripke was Warner Brothers' first choice at adapting the recent Sandman TV show. However, it's believed that Gaiman wasn't completely taken by the angle Kripke wanted to go with. When asked on Twitter what Kripke's pitch was like, Gaiman responded, "It was a terrific network TV version of Sandman. But when you make a network TV version of Sandman, you lose an awful lot of what makes it Sandman. Eric did a great job considering the limitations." And, replying to Gaiman, Kripke himself thanked him for the kind words, also revealing that Warner Brothers wanted to give him a crack at the adaptation. He then told fans that his previous show, Supernatural, was actually inspired by the Sandman comics, which most fans had already guessed. He went on to say, "Neil was kind and patient, but ultimately, it would have been a bad show. I'm glad he held out. Sandman on Netflix is lush, stunning, go watch." What do you guys make of Gaiman and Kripke's words? Let us know below. Next up, an odd Michael Jackson and the Sandman link. Stay tuned. At the height of his stardom in the mid-1990s, Michael Jackson was probably the biggest celebrity on the planet. However, he was also a huge fan of Neil Gaiman's The Sandman comics, so much so that he actually wanted to play Morpheus in the TV adaptation of the cult comic book. Discussing the crazy anecdote on Josh Horowitz's Happy, Sad, Confused podcast recently, Neil Gaiman said, "By 1996, I was being taken to Warner's, where the then president of Warner Brothers sat me down and told me that Michael Jackson had phoned him the day before and asked him if he could star as Morpheus in The Sandman, which must have been a pretty surreal conversation." Gaiman didn't go into details about what he thought of Jackson for the role, but did say, "So there was a lot of interest in this, and they knew that it was one of the crown jewels. And what did I think? And I was like, ooh." Of course, there has been plenty of interest in a TV adaptation of the comic over the years, and Gaiman finally acquiesced this year as Netflix took on the project. And it's safe to say the show has been a hit. The Sandman topped Netflix's global charts for 3 weeks after its release. However, given the claims that have been made about Jackson in the past, Gaiman is possibly relieved the King of Pop didn't use his considerable influence to get the show made with him in it. So what is the show all about? Stick around to find out. Those of you who haven't seen Netflix's The Sandman probably should. The show is complex and intricate, and as the fans of the comics will know, there's plenty of material for its creators to use. The official Netflix synopsis reads, "A rich blend of modern myth and dark fantasy in which contemporary fiction, historical drama, and legend are seamlessly interwoven. The Sandman follows the people and places affected by Morpheus, the Dream King, as he mends the cosmic and human mistakes he's made during his vast existence. The plot follows Tom Sturridge's Morpheus as he's imprisoned for decades after being caught by an occult group. Of course, he eventually escapes before attempting to rebuild his kingdom. He also goes by the name Dream and is one of the 7 endless, alongside destiny, death, desire, despair, delirium, and destruction, who all embody the concepts they're named after. We're not going to spoil too much about the intricacies of the storyline, but we will say that the first season adapts Gaiman's first 2 graphic novels titled Preludes and Nocturnes and The Doll's House. And Gaiman himself had this to say when discussing the show and how it differed from previously proposed films. "The joy for doing it as a Netflix series is we aren't all in the place where we're throwing things out. In fact, it's the other way around." He then revealed that with extended airtime, a lot more stuff gets to happen, which is great. Have you guys seen it yet? Are there any plans for a second season then? Well, given the sheer amount of content on streaming services these days, no show is ever guaranteed to be renewed for a second season. However, sitting top of Netflix's global charts for 3 weeks is bound to help, which is what happened with The Sandman. Some people have suggested this might not matter though. Incredibly, even after racking up more than 127 million viewing hours, Gaiman himself has suggested that this figure may not be enough, but we're sure he's simply being modest. The issue of a second season arose this past weekend as Gaiman engaged in a fan Q&A on Twitter. One fan asked about the likelihood of The Sandman Season 2, but Gaiman explained that due to the massive cost of producing the first season, Season 2 is even a question. The author of the original comic books then went on to say, and for Netflix to release the money to let us make another season, we have to perform incredibly well. So yes, we've been the top show in the world for the last 2 weeks, that still may not be enough. Wow. I mean, when you consider the show has been #1 in countries such as the UK, USA, Canada, Spain, and Israel, you would simply assume the streaming service would order another season right away. But it hasn't turned out that way. Not yet anyway. Do you guys think there should be a second season of The Sandman? So, how has the Sandman TV show been received? To say this one has been a long time in the making could be one of the understatements of the year so far. The epic show adapted from Neil Gaiman's comic books is a bold and wonderful story filled to the brim with the genre of the day, fantasy. With other shows such as House of the Dragon and Rings of Power recently dropping on the small screen, The Sandman has plenty of competition, but it stands up pretty well. There is plenty of fantasy in the early episodes, and the pace never feels rushed. It's more meditative. Of course, there's plenty going on, and the excellent cast do well to not make the sometimes fantastical script sound as ridiculous as other actors might. However, one of the casting choices was particularly odd, as Jolie Richardson plays David Thewlis' mother, even though she's 2 years younger than the legendary actor in real life. Thewlis, of course, is fantastic as John Dee. The show is wildly engrossing from the start, but never takes itself too seriously. Well, not too much anyway. It has a certain emotional depth which is often missing in shows of this nature, as some creative teams can tend to get lost in the whole CGI side of things. Give us your thoughts on the show below. And finally, news of a Supernatural spin-off now. Stay with us. Fans of Supernatural will be well aware of the fact the show's creators are well in the midst of developing a prequel series for the show known as The Winchesters. The show will reportedly tell the story of how John and Mary met and will be told from the point of view of Dean Winchester. It will also go into how they have to put everything on the line to save the world. It was thought the prequel would arrive in time for the fall season, but unfortunately, that no longer seems to be the case. As we know, most shows will return for their next seasons this September, but given the fact that the show is airing on the CW, it's hardly surprising. The broadcaster is known for not sticking to the tried and tested methods of dropping seasons in September, but the good news is that we don't have too much longer to wait. The first episode of The Winchesters will drop in a matter of weeks on Tuesday, October 11th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. The show is set in the 1970s as John has returned from Vietnam, shortly before he meets Mary. As he is used to hunting the enemy in Asia, he quickly falls into the world of hunting stateside. Will you guys be tuning in for The Winchesters? Let us know below. As usual, thanks for dropping by today, and remember to join us again next time for some more fun reveals. And why not do us a solid by sharing today's video with any Supernatural or The Sandman fans you might know of. Bye guys!